Hey there, it's Lara here with your weekly astrology forecast. This one's for the week of April 14th to the 20th, 2021. Thanks for being here. If you've been here before, you'll notice that my setup is a little different today. I've been moving my office stuff around. It's not quite done, and I'm playing with some new tech, and the printer ran out of ink, and the microphone wasn't working, and all the good stuff. And the light is, I don't know if it's, you tell me how the light is, because I got a window here beside me now. And so I don't know if it's working out. And I'm reading my notes off my laptop in front of me because printer ran out of ink, and it's a little more eco-friendly this way too. So how are we doing after the Aries new moon, right? It was really quite intense. Now, as I said, if you follow me on Facebook, I post a lot more regularly there, then you might have seen me post some things about how, it hasn't all been sunshine and rainbows, definitely. It is a powerful catalyst for new beginnings, though. And remember, when we're talking about a moon cycle, that's not just a moment in time, right? So, I don't know about you, but the last few days have been pretty intense, and there's been a lot of intense stuff going on just in my city that I live, to my community, and also personally, but and for my kids and that kind of thing. But I'm trying really hard, easier said than done sometimes, to remember that with, powerful new beginnings often are accompanied by endings that happen first, right? And that's kind of been the way. It's this very, very Phoenix rising energy that we have going on, as I mentioned on Facebook recently. And there are a lot of good, helpful aspects happening between the planets as well, in between the more prickly kind of intense ones. We've had Venus and Pluto in square to each other, and that was pretty intense. I felt that real personally because it hit a very touchy spot in my chart in Aries. I have a lot going on in Aries, you might have heard me say before. And maybe you do too, but just those themes, right, of Venus and our resources, our relationships, the harmony and that kind of thing, in Aries, in her fall in Aries, and then being squared by Pluto in Capricorn, who is, as I mentioned in last week's video, still wrapping up this transition and this transformation. And that was a big reminder of what all of those planets in Capricorn have been doing, right? And we know Saturn and Jupiter have moved out of there now, but Pluto's still there, still doing the work, still turning up the soil, still composting things. And in Capricorn, that is oftentimes things related to sort of more patriarchal structures, right? And institutions and governments, banks, these kinds of things. Locally, we've had a major shit show going on with our university this week. It's awful what's happening. They've axed like 60 programs and fired a ton of professors, and declared bankruptcy, the whole deal. It's a gong show. So that's happening here very personally. I have a few degrees from that university, and it's a major part of our community. So it's really quite upsetting. It's really upsetting to see what's going on there. So things like that, for those of you who aren't from around here and don't know what I'm talking about, but things like that could be you could be witnessing those things, right? I know in the US we've had another police shooting of a young black man. We're having our attention is being drawn back to that. This isn't over yet, right? These things aren't over yet. Pluto's still in Capricorn, still doing that work there. So I just wanted to mention that to you. But I also want you to know that there are some opportunities on the horizon and in the mix, and have your eyes open for them, right? And we are winding down Aries season right now. And we're going to get a bit of a break come Taurus season in some ways. So that's what I'm going to talk about in today's video, is the movement of several planets into Taurus and how we might notice that shift. I've been up since early and on the go here, so my throat's a little dry, excuse me. So the moon is already in Taurus, and so she's kind of lighting the path, right, for the other planets that will soon enter Taurus. So pay attention now. What's the vibe kind of thing, right? What are you feeling like physically, emotionally? Take those cues into Taurus season. So, and then on Thursday, she'll move into Gemini, and Saturday into Cancer, and then Leo on Tuesday. So don't forget, if you're new here, or if you haven't yet, go over to my website, grab my free guide to working with the moon, and that will help you make more sense of like, why do I always tell you where the moon is at? And what does that mean, and why is that relevant, sort of thing. So, because I don't want to go into a big, long explanation every week. All right. As we're winding down Aries season, I actually, I have a lot of planets in Aries, as I've mentioned. My North Node is in Aries, and the North Node is, in evolutionary astrology, at least, it points to our sort of our soul's desired trajectory for us in this incarnation, right? In this lifetime. So it's what our soul wants us to embody more of, to embrace those attributes of that sign, whatever sign our North Node is in. Because the thinking is that the South Node is sort of what we're very well versed in. What we've been there, we've done that, we've bought the t-shirt. It may be things that, like, not necessarily that we're awesome, but that we've got such a good grasp on, or we've done to death, that it's time to move on. It's time to take those lessons and grow from there, right? And grow into the opposite in some ways, because the North and South nodes are always opposite each other in the sky, right? So in evolutionary astrology terms, that's what the nodes represent, to put it really simply. There's some other thinking in traditional astrology, that the North Node is the head of the dragon, so to speak, and it's like what we crave more of. So it's kind of the same thing, but also there's a kind of a built-in warning there that we can take it too far, right? We can have such a voracious appetite for something that we can just never get enough. So all that to say, at the end of this Aries season, as Aries season is winding down, I'm really getting a sense of what this is about for me. And I've been working on this for a while, because, I have my Chiron is in Aries, and I had my Chiron return, which was a doozy for me. And just, I've had my Venus Saturn conjunction there triggered all last year. So anyways, the long and the short of it is, been really trying to get a grip, on what this is about. And it has a lot to do with courage, and it has a lot to do with, kind of going my own way, really and truly. And it has a lot to do with independence, and with really having a clearer sense of who I am and that I have a right to exist, right? Chiron in Aries is about that for all of us. As Chiron transits Aries, it's this process of 7 or 8 years where we're all kind of healing some sort of identity wound on some level, right? Like, who am I? Who am I in relation to the other? Do I have a right to exist and take up space and have my voice heard and be seen and heard and all of those things, right? So I've been going through this process personally. And so today on my Facebook page, my business page, I was kind of called to post something, because it occurred to me that I don't always, I'm not maybe as vocal with certain things on my business page as I am personally in my personal life and my personal page. My Instagram feed kind of crosses over a little bit, but the thing is, I feel like if people are connecting with me on Facebook and they're spending time with me there, and then I kind of have a duty to be 100% honest and transparent with who I am, right? And so it kind of occurred to me that maybe a lot of people, or maybe a lot of you, don't know that I'm very much an activist, right? And so I wrote about that and what that means to me on Facebook. So if you want to read that, then you can go. The link is below. You can go check that out. And it's a post. Actually, I posted a graphic by somebody else who spoke about what activism can look like. So anyway, blah blah blah. That's that. So I hope that you take a few moments, if you didn't get a chance at the Aries new moon, if you take a few moments before we really get into Taurus season to reflect on what's gone on for you over the last month or so, even the last 6 months of 2020, because Mars was retrograde in Aries, and like, what has that been about for you, right? Where has that sparked your maybe inner warrior, or where has it highlighted themes of needing to be more assertive or less aggressive, or anger, activism, physicality, independence, these kinds of things. So I wanted to mention that to you before we go any further here. And I hope I didn't take up too much of your time doing that, but I thought it was important. So I'm going to run you through a few things that are happening over the next few days. And then we're going to do a bit of a deep dive into Taurus. And we're going to then talk about, where does Taurus sit in the chart for you, right? Like, what house is Taurus in? So what are the themes that you can expect to be calling for your attention over the next month or so? All right, so we're going to start with just letting you know that today, in fact, on Wednesday, well, technically I'm recording this on Tuesday later in the day, but Wednesday the 14th, Venus is moving into Taurus. And that happens at about 2:22 p.m. Eastern time. So you can adjust accordingly. Venus loves to be in Taurus. Taurus is the feminine home of Venus. So Venus is leaving the area that she's really not comfortable in. She's leaving Aries' home, where she doesn't really feel all that welcome, and she's going home, right? And into her feminine home. And so Venus has two homes, because Venus rules Libra and Taurus. So you can think of this as kind of Venus's summer home, I guess, if you want. But so when Venus moves home to Taurus, she can kind of, take a load off, breathe a sigh of relief, put on the comfies, flop down on the couch, grab the ice cream and turn on the Netflix for a while sort of thing, right? Or get out in nature and get her hands in the soil and do some gardening or spend some time, with the earth, that sort of thing. Or just slowing down and appreciating the simple pleasures. That's what Venus really likes to do in Taurus. And so this is good. This is going to feel good. This is, in terms of Venusian matters in our life, which may have been feeling not so good over the last while, right? So things like our relationships and our resources, our sense of beauty and aesthetic and harmony and those kinds of things will feel more comfortable while Venus is in Taurus. And then tomorrow on Thursday, the 15th, the sun in Aries is making a sextile to Jupiter in Aquarius. And I talked about sextiles last week. I think I talked a lot about them, or the week before, but I mentioned, I think it was the week before where I kind of did a mini lesson on sextiles. And then last week in the Aries new moon video, I also talked about the fact they were having, these sextiles over the course of the month. So the sun sextile Jupiter, right? Just to refresh your memory, or if you didn't hear my video when I talked about it, a sextile is a conversation of opportunity. It's where the two planets involved are friendly to each other. They're helping each other out. You can think of it that way. And so it's when the sun and Jupiter are involved in a sextile, it's considered a pretty fortunate aspect. So this can be, this can see us experiencing some sort of illumination, right? That sun, property of the sun, illumination of a truth when we're talking about Jupiter, or justice, or maybe being sort of witnessed or acknowledged for our sense of morals, or our wisdom in some way. This can be a spot of luck when Jupiter is involved, or an opportunity for the taking, really. And Jupiter expands what it touches. So it could be just something comes into your awareness that expands your horizons in some way, right? Or just it could be a feeling of increased optimism. I know we're heading to the lake on Thursday. So I'm looking really forward to being by the water for a few days, and, enjoying some time in nature. So it could be as simple as that, something that gives you just a feeling of more joy and optimism. But because Jupiter expands whatever it touches, like I said, it amplifies whatever it touches. There might be we might see some amplification of issues around leaders and authorities when we're talking about Jupiter and the sun together. And I'm thinking about the situation that's going on locally here. And Jupiter is about teaching and learning. It's connected to wisdom. And so, we may get some news or something around the university situation here, for example. But just in general, that might be something that comes into our awareness. And then on Friday, the 16th, here's one of those touchier things, right? Those more prickly kind of tension that's going on over the course of the week. So on Friday, the sun in Aries, the sun will still be in Aries on Friday, will square Pluto in Capricorn at 26 degrees. And so this is right where Venus and Pluto squared off at the time of that new moon. So this is some more intensity here with the sun and Pluto, but it's not necessarily going to surprise us. It's not probably going to be anything that's new, completely out of the blue. It's something that's been going on, that we've been dealing with or aware of, and it might hit a bit of a rough patch, or a bit more friction might come up around whatever those Aries Capricorn issues are, right? So there can be, like, when we're talking about the Sun and Pluto, there can be conflict, power struggles, the amplification of issues around leadership, money, authority, secrets, corruption, this kind of thing, potentially, right? And personally, if we're talking on like a personal level, this could like illuminate some unconscious stuff, right? Some unconscious stuff coming to the surface, some sort of there could be a light shone on the dark corners or the skeletons in the closet. And that's not always a bad thing, because those things need to be acknowledged in order to be released. So a square is a conversation of tension, but it can result in really positive change if we take action, right? And we don't allow the tension to get the better of us and to force our hand into doing something, or making a choice that we may not really be proud of or happy about. It's all in our response. And being sort of proactive about it is always the best approach when we're talking about a square. And then on Saturday, we have something really nice happening where Mars in Gemini is in a trine, which is another very helpful, positive aspect to Jupiter again in Aquarius, right? And Jupiter we call the greater benefic. So Jupiter is the planet of expansion and luck and abundance and growth and wisdom and morality and, higher mindedness, these sorts of things. And particularly when it's in a positive conversation. Jupiter can have the tendency to grow or expand the things that we don't want sometimes too. It can get a little out of control. It doesn't really have a lot of boundaries. But when we're talking about a trine, which is a 130-degree angle, then it's this more positive aspect. It's an aspect of harmony and of ease, right? So this can be some relief if we've had some tension between, surrounding that Sun Pluto square, then this can be some relief from that. This is a good time for like taking action based on instinct as well, because Mars is in Gemini, right? And so that's favored. And also putting ideas, Gemini, into action can also be favored. There can be some kind of more like assertive communication, which brings you a growth opportunity in some way. This is like this combination. I see it's kind of like the hero or the heroine that's really like a very clever strategist, right? We can also maybe see some communications around in a group setting around because Jupiter's in Aquarius, that have something to do with the collective in some way. But ultimately it's supportive, because trines are supportive. And then I want to talk just a little bit about Mercury. So Mercury is following the path of the sun. I haven't showed you the chart, and I'm going to show you the chart. I actually, earlier today, had a little test run, figuring out how to show you my screen, share my screen. So that's coming. But right now, here we still have this way. And I got to reach way over because the camera's over there. But here's Mercury, right? At 20 degrees of Aries. And that's on Wednesday. So today, because we have, where's Venus? Oh, there's Venus, because Venus will have just entered Taurus, her feminine home, but we will still have Mercury and the sun here in Aries. And so these planets are going to move into Taurus as well. And Mercury is following behind the sun and going to meet up with the sun on the 18th. So I wanted to just show you that. So as Mercury is following the sun's path, it will make sextiles to Jupiter and then to Mars, and then it will have a square to Pluto. So before meeting up with the sun, right? And so it's like Mercury is gathering and exchanging information. It's kind of like picking up on all the details of everything that's transpired during Aries season. It's like assimilating all this information. And then on Sunday the 18th, Mercury will be what we call cazimi with the sun. So meet right up with the sun at 29 degrees of Aries, which is the last degree of Aries. So it's kind of like this energy of the big reveal. That's kind of the way that I see it. It's kind of like the final big reveal. If you ever seen those home makeover shows or anything like that. But it's like, because Mercury has, the path, or the sun has gone forward, and the sun is the leader, right? In a sense, the authority. And so Mercury has followed and picked up all this information, found out what's going on, gathered the details. Then the sun will hold I think of it as holding counsel with Mercury, right? On the 18th. And so there's going to be like, okay, here's the information, here's the story. Now Mercury's going to emerge with the message, sort of thing. It's kind of like that. Hopefully that makes sense to you. So after that happens at the last degree of Aries, on Monday, Mercury and then the sun move into Taurus. So Mercury meets up with the sun and then gets a little bit ahead of the sun, moves into Taurus, and the sun follows right behind on the same day. And it's officially Taurus season as of Monday, the 19th, right? So happy birthday if you're a Taurus sun sign. And so as we enter Taurus season, it's time to find our footing, at least for a little while. And I say at least for a little while because we have Uranus in Taurus as well right now. So, and we know, if you recall, that Uranus in Taurus is in this on and off square all year with Saturn in Aquarius, right? It is the defining signature of the astrology of 2021. And it, as the planets move through the signs and retrograde, it's like it will crescendo. Right, we already had it once. I didn't write down the other two dates. I can't remember exactly. I think the next one is in June, it seems to me, and then later in the year. But the first one was in February, but I don't remember the exact date. So, of the exact square. And so, as these planets, Venus, Mercury, the Sun, and the Moon, as the Moon moves through as well. But moves quite quickly, it will trigger that square. So it's not, it won't necessarily be, when Uranus is in Taurus, it shakes things up in a sign that likes stability, right? But sometimes shakeups are good and necessary. So, but the thing is when Venus first moves in there and, Mercury and the sun, we're going to get this opportunity to kind of go, and at least catch a breath. So let's talk a little bit about Taurus before we go through the signs and I tell you where this is happening. And of course, I'm going to give you some questions to reflect on as well. So Taurus is a fixed earth sign. The symbol is the bull, as you may already know. And Taurus has, well, first off, the fixed signs, right, are the signs that mark the middle of the four seasons, when things are kind of at their peak and not really changing. And of course I have a cat who's trying to enter. But anyway, so there's this fixed quality. right? Fixed earthy quality to Taurus. Think of like, the solid earth, quite literally. And it's the symbol of the bull. Taurus has this deep connection to the material world, the natural world of, the world of the five senses. As I mentioned, it's the feminine home of Venus, right? And it's very connected to our resources, our natural resources, even our money and, the markets, our material possessions, our sense of security and worth and values, our food supply, our, even just like sort of the simple pleasures in life, right? The good food, and the comfort, comfortable fabrics. Taurus really likes nice things, but the nice things that Taurus likes, ruled by Venus, tend to be a bit more homey and laid back and natural and simple. Whereas Libra, right, Venus's other home sign, it can be a bit more of, the aesthetic can be a little bit more classy, if you will, right? A little bit more high end, whereas, or a little bit more blingy than Taurus. So, and at its best, let's talk a little bit about sort of best worst kind of thing, or like operating in an optimal fashion, and maybe operating at a less than optimal fashion. Because, if you hear me talk, if you've heard me talk about these things before, every sign has sort of a higher vibrational quality and, a lower vibrational quality. It exists on a continuum, right? Like everything. And so at its best, Taurus is very stable and grounded and reliable, very patient, and very affectionate and enduring and predictable. And we need that, right? Particularly in our current world climate. Taurus is sensual, really appreciative, like I said, of the world of the five senses. And so there's that side of Taurus. And really, if you really think about the symbol of Taurus, the bull, right? This starts to make sense. At its worst, Taurus can be very stubborn and fixated, can be possessive of possessions, of people even, can be a bit indulgent, at the extreme, potentially lazy even, but can be very, very like single-minded and set in their ways and risk averse, right? Which is not always a bad thing, but it depends. So there's that quality of, if you think of the bull, and you have a bull that's just sort of peaceful. Bulls are very peaceful creatures, just peacefully kind of grazing, minding its own business, grazing in the field, just taking its time, knows there's no rush to get anywhere. But then if sort of triggered or provoked, there's this capacity to really dig its heels in or be enraged, right? In a way. And so it's kind of, that can be because something has triggered their fear response. And so there's this kind of lashing out that can happen. Like the bull in the china shop, or you think about bulls, the bull run that happens, can't remember where, and I don't know if it's Spain or Pompeii. I don't remember where. Well, I guess that is Spain, but I can't remember what part it is, or like this whole idea of, the bulls rushing the the bullfighter and seeing red, right? Which is kind of a myth. But anyways, that's the idea that we have. So there's this this sense of when the Taurus energy is triggered in some way, that fear response is triggered, then or you know, it gets pushed to the point of fed up, then watch out sort of thing, right? So there can be that. But ultimately, Taurus really wants us to have reverence for the earth and its ability to sustain us, right? Taurus knows that, like, Mother Nature provides everything we really need. So Taurus knows that if we don't respect nature, then we run the risk of ruining our home. So, you know, and there's that whole Taurus knows slow and steady wins the race. There's no rush, right? Taurus does not love change, though. And, you know, with Uranus currently in Taurus, since I think 2018 and for the next, I can't remember exactly when it moves out, but from 2018 for about 7 or 8 years in Taurus. So we have a while yet. The Taurus energy in the world is being destabilized, because that's what Uranus does. It destabilizes things. And so, you know, it's shaking us out of our comfort zone. And so we've seen big changes to the economy, which Taurus is connected to, you know, the markets. We've seen changes to our food supply. We've seen a focus on, like, sustainability and innovation, you know, in terms of our food and our resources. Lots of people have started growing food at home, you know, when we realize that, you know, it's a response to food insecurity. And you know, when COVID hit and the grocery store shelves were empty last year and that kind of thing, right? And then we also see it on the level of more earthquakes and volcanoes erupting and that kind of thing as well. So natural, you know, phenomenon like that. So Taurus wants us to be mindful of the earth, to really find our footing right now, because we may have been running so fast through Aries season in particular, that we've barely come up for air, right? And there may have been a lot of friction going on and that kind of thing. We may feel a little, it's like we're a little battle scarred, and now it's time to kind of retreat and go home and, you know, tend to our wounds a little bit for a little bit. But there may be some surprises waiting at home too, because Uranus is there, right? So I'm going to give you some questions to ponder that you can, you know, journal or whatever you want, or just listen and reflect, up to you. And then I will get into all the signs and where this is happening in your chart. Okay, so here are some questions to ponder this Taurus season, right? And keeping in mind that particularly, like, you can use these in general, but if you focus them at least partly on the house that Taurus sits in your particular chart and those themes, then it may make more sense to you, or you may see the connection more, right? Wherever the sun goes, it draws our attention. And so, you know, it's kind of like wherever the sun goes, just as the earth revolves around the sun, like life tends to kind of revolve around that, right? The themes that the sun is illuminating. And that happens obviously in a cycle of 12 months and 12 signs of the zodiac. So here are some questions to ponder. All right. How can I regain my footing, or how can I comfort myself after the potential, you know, overactivity of Aries season, or the potential friction of Aries season, or just the busyness of Aries season, right? How can I regain my footing now? Okay, next question. What can I do to reconnect with the natural world, or the world of the five senses? Like, even if you live in a big city and you can't get out in nature too much, can you bring some plants into your home? Is there a park close by you can spend some time in? Even animals. Are there animals that you can spend time with? Can you maybe work on learning a few new recipes? Tasting some good wine, or planning some, intentional comfort time with, a hot bath and a nice glass of wine or something like that, right? So how can you reconnect to the natural world, or the sensual world? And then next question. What is my relationship to my resources, right? Taurus is about our resources, what we need and can draw on to sustain ourselves and support ourselves, and get our needs met, sort of thing. So what is my relationship to my resources? Like your money, your material possessions, your belongings, that kind of thing. Next question. What do I value at my core, right? So it's a good time to reflect on what do you really value? What do you think is valuable? What do you place worth on in your life, right? And has that been neglected? Are you potentially, does that need a revamp? Are you maybe realizing that you're placing value or importance on things that maybe are not serving you so well, right? So what do I value at my core? Next question. What is my relationship to my self-worth? So for example, if you're somebody who runs a service or a business or something like that, like, is it time to revisit your pricing? Is it time to start charging more? Is it, if you work for an employer, is it time to ask for a raise? Is it time to invest more in yourself? Or have conversely, a question you could ask is, have I been maybe overly indulgent in those areas? And now, I'm kind of realizing this, and I need to rein it in a bit. Just in terms of maybe being a little bit too lavish, or spending too much on certain things, right? Or maybe having like a misplaced sense of what I'm placing value on. Okay, next question. But it's really about owning your worth, though. So, next question. Do I value the earth, right? And if so, if I really truly value the earth, what is one small thing that I can practice regularly to affirm that, right? It doesn't have to be a big thing. Like, it can be planting a tree. It can be making a donation to a community garden. It can be learning how to garden. It can be just beautifying a space for people to enjoy. And of course, there's the things like, it can be using less plastic, being aware of where our food comes from, all of these kinds of things. So, is there one small thing that you can practice regularly to sort of affirm that? Or maybe if you're really good at that, can you offer that knowledge and how to somebody else, right? And I guess, like, I didn't write this down, but I'm coming from the premise that we all value the earth. But I mean, it really certainly seems like there's maybe some people who don't give it much thought. And if that's you, then maybe you want to ask yourself why that is. Or if that's people that you know, maybe you want to use that courage that you mustered up in Aries season and have that conversation, or bring that to somebody's attention in a a gentle, kind way, sort of thing. All right, so next question. How do I value the things specifically that revolve around the Taurus area of my chart, right? The house that Taurus sits for you, which I'm going to get to. Am I too stubborn in some way about these things? Do I have my heels too dug in here? Or is there some wiggle room to change my approach? Drawing on that Uranus energy that really wants us to innovate in some way in the Taurus house of our chart, right? All right. Next question. There's just a few more here. Can I practice intentional rest so that I have the stamina to tackle anything that may require my energy down the road? So maybe, when we've got some trickier stuff going on, or when that Saturn-Uranus square might be triggered again, can you get your rest now intentionally? Can you build intentional rest into your schedule, for example? And maybe even take a little bit extra of it if you are able to, so that you have, the internal resources to deal when things might require you to respond quickly, or that kind of thing. All right. And I kind of touched on this next question, but how can I intentionally shake up or innovate the Taurus house in my chart, right? And then last question, it's not really a question so much as a bit of a suggestion for you, but I think it would be a good opportunity over this next month, this Taurus season, to keep track of the things that make you feel grounded, right? And make you feel stable and secure and worthy and, connected to the earth, and maybe appreciative of even your your body and the food you put in it and that kind of thing. So like, what are the places, what are the practices, what are the things, who are the people that give you that sense of grounding? And make a conscious effort to take note of that and maybe bring, more of that into your life. So those are the questions I have for you. And now we're going to run through the signs. And I'm not going to take too much time, but, I'm going to talk to you about where is Taurus sitting for you, based first and foremost on your rising sign. So if you know your rising sign or your ascendant, listen for that. First and foremost, because that's going to really speak in a general reading like this to, the whole sign house that Taurus sits for you. And then you can also listen for your sun and moon sign. And of course, if you don't know your rising sign, which you need a fairly accurate birth time to get, but if you don't know that, then you can still listen to your sun and your moon, or you can have a reading with me or somebody else that can help you figure out where your rising sign is. I'm actually working on something where you can, spoiler alert, maybe I'm giving, but where you're going to be able to do that for yourself. But also, if you have a little bit of astro knowledge, you can go to a free website and like AstroSeek and draw up a birth chart. And then, if you have your birth time and your birth information, then you can see where your rising sign is. All right. So, and I'm using whole sign houses, right? So you're aware of that. All right. So we're going to take it through the signs, and we're going to start with Taurus because it's Taurus season. So we're going to start with Taurus. Happy birthday to Taurus sun sign. It is if you're a Taurus sun and you're listening to this, this is your sort of rebirth point for the year, right? It's your solar return month. And so it's like your new year. And if you're a Taurus rising, this is happening in your first house. And so it's a big deal when something happens in our first house. It really draws our attention to the self, right? The first house is all about us. It's about our physical body and our physical vitality. It's about our approach to the world and how the world sees us and perceives us, how we come at the world. It's really about the whole enchilada, so to speak, when we're talking about the first house. So, and when things happen in the first house, it's often a time when like something kind of new emerges into our awareness, or we emerge anew some way in the world as well. So, all this activity is happening in your sign, Taurus, if you're Taurus sun or Taurus rising in your first house. And so it's a good time for a reboot, right? For really a fresh start. And for, I always say to the sign, whoever sign I'm speaking to, where this energy is falling in the first house, or if it's your season, then we're all looking, if the sun is moving through your sign, we're all looking to you as the example of what would, in this case, Taurus do, right? And so the idea here is to really kind of embody those really positive qualities of Taurus that we talked about. So you might be looking at revamping your appearance in some way. You might be looking at a new way of caring for your body more. You might be showing up in the world a little bit differently, right? Something may have changed, and so you're coming out in some different way. You may have changed your approach to the world, or people may be seeing you in a different light for some reason. It's a good time to tend to your wellness, your physical, wellness and vitality. So I'm going to leave that for you, Taurus. Definitely, of course, listen to the questions, right, that I gave you just before going through the signs here, and that will help you put this in context. So I'm going to move on to Aries now. Aries, for you, this is happening in your second house. And so, So for you, the focus over the next little while with, Venus and then the sun and Mercury also in Taurus is drawn to your resources, your personal resources, your money and material possessions, your time and energy potentially as well. Your sense of worth and self-worth, and, what are you charging and what are you asking for? What are you asking to be paid? It can be about the food you put into your body and how you're nurturing yourself in that way, or something, surrounding that, like maybe you're going to plant a garden. It can have to do with, because it's Taurus energy, the idea here is to embody that sort of stable steadiness, right? So maybe it's about kind of trying to get your footing in terms of your resources, your personal resources. What can you do to feel more grounded and stable? And nurtured in that way. So I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to keep these pretty short this week because it's pretty cut and dry, and I'm just going to give you the themes. And then if you listen to the introduction, you're definitely going to have the context and be able to apply this. So next we've got Pisces. So Pisces, for you, you've got Venus and then the sun and Mercury also moving into your third house, which is where Taurus sits for you. So this is the time of year where your focus often shifts towards your immediate environment and the people in it. So this can be siblings, it can be cousins and neighbors, friends that feel like family. This also has to do with communications and messages exchanged. It has to do with teaching and learning, often of, the more early years. So it can be early learning, it can be elementary school, high school, it can be, learning the basics. It can also have to do with like short distance travel, like little day trips or something like that you're taking, or it can have to do with technology or vehicles. It can have to do with commerce and marketing. These are all things. The third house is ruled by Mercury, right? So it's a little bit of everything in there. And so, but it's largely has to do with communications, ideas, thoughts, and your siblings, and all those themes that I mentioned. So this can be what's drawing your attention around Taurus season. And so the idea here is, how can, where's your footing there? How can you get your footing if you feel like you've lost it in that area? How can you feel more grounded, and potentially more kind of connected to the earth, but just to like a sense of stability when it comes to those themes, right? It could be like you could be spending money on new technology even around this time. You could be going on some day trips that are kind of nature based, maybe just spending time in nature, food foraging, those kinds of things. You could be having some really sort of grounded conversations with siblings, potentially. You could even be like teaching or learning about, gardening or stocks or something like that around this time too. So I think that gives you enough to go on, Pisces, but that's where the focus is for you during Taurus season. So listen to the questions in the intro, right, for the context. And we're going to move to Aquarius now. Aquarius for you, Taurus, sits in the 4th house. So this is where your attention is being drawn over Taurus season, when we've got Venus and Mercury and the Sun traveling through Taurus, right? Pardon me. So this is a time of year when you may there may be a focus more so on family, on your place of living, on your home, on your roots, on your sense of emotional security, on things revolving around like female figures or mother figures, that kind of thing. I just see that my battery is running low, so hopefully this doesn't cut off. But so that's where the focus is. And so this could be like, just making your home more comfy, or bring some kind of the elements of nature into your home somehow. This could be planting a garden at home. This could be even things like home finances, working on that. It could be just spending a lot more time at home and feeling comfortable there. So, those are some things that gives you an idea of where the focus is. And then if you listen to those questions, you'll be able to kind of apply that to these themes, right? That I'm talking to you about in the 4th house. So that's for you. We're going to move to Capricorn now, where Capricorn, you've got the 5th house being activated by the Sun and Mercury and Venus over the course of Taurus season. And so this is when, your attention tends to get drawn to themes of children, of what brings you pleasure, of having fun, of, maybe hobbies and special interests, of what, any, creative projects, that kind of thing. Oftentimes it's like individual sort of things that we're working on creatively, but very much oftentimes it's children. And when I say children, it could be your children you're associated with in some way, issues around children in general, pregnancy, those kinds of things. So those are the themes that are being highlighted over Taurus season. And the idea here is, what would Taurus do? It's kind of like, how can you get a better sense of sort of groundedness there, and maybe slowing down and stabilizing, and feeling more connected and earthed by those things in your life, right after the potential sort of craziness of Aries season. So that's for you, Capricorn. And I'm going to move to Sagittarius now, where we have this Taurus energy all in your 6th house. So this has to do with your wellness routines, health, illness. It can have to do with pets. It can have to do with your daily routine and just the sense of kind of checking off the ticky boxes and taking care of the daily chores and doing all those things on the day-to-day in our work, be it paid or unpaid, that, we have to do to keep things running smoothly, and to keep our bodies running smoothly when it comes to our health as well. So, those are the things to be paying attention to, and that's going to naturally happen with all this activation in that house. And it's a time to really, connect to your body, connect to the earth. Like, how can you bring a greater sense of stability and groundedness to that area of life, right? And it may be like spending some resources on those things right about now too is possible. So I'm going to leave that there, and I'm going to move on to Scorpio now. And Scorpio, for you, this is happening in your 7th house. So you've got Taurus in your 7th house, and this draws your attention at this time of year to, with the sun there, and Venus and Mercury as well, to your one-to-one relationships, right? And so it's very much about close personal relationships of all kinds, whether it be significant other, business partnerships, close friends, family members, even rivals. And it can also have to do with contracts and agreements. And so there's this sense of focus there. And, the idea here is, what would Taurus do? So it's like, how can you bring a greater sense of stability to that area of life? Give it a little love at this time of year. Maybe, it can be things like getting out in nature with your partner. It can be things like, it can impact, can have to do with your partner's resources too, and material possessions in some way. It can have to do with even signing some kind of contract that has to do with like it makes me think of things like, like if you work in mining, or so that's a big thing around here where I live, or the natural resources in some way, the environment. It could be like meeting a time when you meet other people or meet somebody in a kind of Taurian setting, like out in nature, or, at a restaurant or something like that. So if you're allowed to do that right now where you are. So, those are some things to play with, but it's very much the house of, one-to-one relationships there for you, Scorpio, that's being activated. So I'm going to leave you with that, and move to Libra now, where we have the 8th house being activated by this energy. And so this is all about other people's resources. When the sun and Mercury and Venus are all lighting up this area of the chart, your attention is naturally drawn to this 8th house and these themes, other people's resources. So this can be things like your partner's money. It can be investments. It could be mortgages. It could be loans, debt, taxes, insurance, wills, inheritance. All of these themes can be highlighted. It could also have to do with, your intimate relationships, like your the way you merge kind of with other people. You're like, the way I always talk about the 8th house is, it's like your entanglement with other people in some way, and it's about your psychological depth as well, right? And whatever's going on there. So these are the areas that are being highlighted for you over Taurus season, and it's, asking for some attention and a way to think about what would Taurus do, and how can I bring some grounding and some stability in some way to these life themes right now. So that's for you, Libra. I'm going to move to Virgo next, where we have all this energy in your 9th house. So the sun, Venus, Mercury in your 9th house of Taurus. And so this draws your attention, Virgo, to themes of long distance travel, potentially, foreign people and places, higher learning, so anything beyond kind of high school, or anything you're learning beyond the basics, teaching, publishing, putting your message out there. It has to do with justice, morality, courts, even ninth house is a ninth house theme. It can have to do with, things that you're learning from people that, are different from you or at a distance from you or different cultures, that sort of thing. So this is a time when your attention tends to be focused on those kinds of themes. And it's about, getting a sense of getting your footing in that area, whatever's going on in that area of life, and maybe allowing that to potentially bring more resources in, or to have a more grounded connection in some way to those themes, right? So I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to move to Leo now, where we have this energy lighting up your 10th house. Venus, the Sun, and Mercury in the 10th house of Taurus for you, Leo. And so this is about your public life, your public reputation and persona, your career, your worldly ambitions, the legacy you wish to leave. All of these themes are highlighted. And so, it's a time to kind of focus here and to get a sense of what can bring you more stability and a sense of grounding. How can you get your footing? If you maybe feel like you've lost it, particularly over Aries season, but how can you get your footing here? And how can you maybe slow down a little bit, even when we're talking about Taurus, right? In this area, and kind of get your bearings a little bit. In relation to all of these 10th house themes. And so, Leo, definitely listen to the questions that I gave you leading into this, right? And the intro, and that will help. All right, next we're going to move to Cancer. Cancer, for you, all of this is going on in your 11th house. So you've got the Sun and Mercury and Venus all moving into the 11th house. And this is the house of groups, of friends, of organizations, clubs, associations, of networks, online communities even. It has to do with alliances, right? And the people that can help you get where you want to go. Your hopes and dreams for the future. Those are all 11th house themes. And so at this time of year, your attention is drawn there. So maybe it's like a time of year when you're spending more time with friends, or there's something about a group dynamic, that's going on, or you are aligning yourself with people that can kind of help you reach your goals, right? Or you're just putting more attention on those themes. And the idea is, if you feel like you've maybe lost your footing and in that area, in any of those areas of life, then now's a time when you can harness that Taurus ability to ground and stabilize this area of life. So I'm going to leave that there, and I'm going to go last but not least to Gemini, where Gemini, this is happening in your 12th house. Venus, Mercury, and the Sun all moving into your 12th house. And so this time of year, right, because it's just, if you're a Gemini Sun, it's just before your birthday. If you're a Gemini rising, this is in your 12th house. So it's a time of year for a bit of retreat, where you may feel really drained, where you may, you need extra rest. There may be a lot going on behind closed doors. There may be even a focus on certain institutions like hospitals or retreat centers, or hospices, or any kind of facility, rehab facility, anything like that. Potentially, that's not to say that every year that doesn't happen, but at some times it might. This is about kind of your, the unseen world, your dream life, your connection with your spiritual life and spiritual and mental health and wellness. It can be a time where things are winding down. There can be endings of certain things because you're readying for a rebirth of sorts, right? When the sun moves into your sign, if you're a Gemini sun sign, or when it moves into your first house. Your first house if you're a Gemini rising. So it can be a time when, there's this feeling of kind of lethargy and stuff, and that's okay. Go with it. Harness that Taurus energy to to slow you down, right? That's what you should be doing right now. And to get a sense of groundedness and maybe connect with nature, or bring some nature into your space if you can. This is, maybe you're even spending some resources on relaxing in some way, shape, or form. So that's for you, Gemini, and that's all 12 signs. And I'm so glad the battery didn't run out. And I really appreciate you spending this time with me. So I will catch you next week, and hang in there. Bye for now.